Hi. Long time no see. Um, I have not been posting, as you may or may not know, or creating content or focusing on this kind of work, and it's because I was diagnosed with a rare lung disease, and at first I was taking care of myself physically, and after physically, I was feeling better and I was on the road to recovery. Then I was then I was trying to deal with the emotions that come with a disease diagnosis. So I've been busy with other things. Recently, I've had an urge to an urge to share again, an urge to come back to the work that I enjoy and contribute to the world again. And so that's what this is. This is my baby steps back into sharing more broadly. I'm still feeling really emotional and fragile, and I'm just not ready to be out in the world very much yet. So, for that reason, I'm so thankful that Sam Campbell agreed to do this video and audio recording with me. Let's see, it was like 10 months ago, maybe a little bit, about 9 or 10 months ago. And when she did that recording with me, I was at the very start of my decline in health. And it was actually emotional for me to listen and watch the interactions between us, because I remembered so clearly how hard it was to breathe. And Sam, I'm so grateful that she agreed to do that with me. Initially, I had planned to create a lot of content to go along with it, to share in more depth, some of the concepts that came out of our chat together. And as I was getting more sick, I didn't have the energy or capacity to create the content, so I kept pushing off sharing the video. And at some point, I had pushed it off, and I was actually in a place where I was bedridden, and there was there was no sharing any content. It was really just I was in survival mode. So I feel thankful that the person who was on the receiving end of me pushing off that interview was Sam Campbell, because she was so gracious about the whole thing, understanding, and I'm really happy to be sharing it now, because Sam is active in our local community in terms of providing programming, and her son Soren, whom I have worked with in the past, he's now offering some summer programming. So I feel really excited that the timing has worked out the way it has. I think that you'll really enjoy what Sam has to share, and I think that you'll enjoy it no matter what age your kids are. Sam has kids who are fully grown, and she also has her younger kids are at home continuing their learning at home and in alternative programs. And I also think that you'll appreciate what Sam has to share, even if you are not homeschooling. Her approach to parenting and her style of parenting. I love one of the phrases that she shares, that she's not a helicopter parent, she's a submarine parent. She likes to go deep, and I can relate to that. And I think that folks who are interested in the content that I have to share, oh, there's a fly, fly trying to go up my nose. I think that folks who are interested in the content that I try to share will really resonate with her message, regardless of what type of education your children have. I normally share information about Patreon. I have a little blurb that I usually do, but my heart kind of my heart kind of tenses up when I think about doing that blurb. So really, I just want to share what Sam has to say. I think you'll find it really valuable. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me after such a long break. I look forward to being here a little bit more often, but yeah, I gotta go slow because I am I am emotional and not quite ready to be out there in the world yet. But I am ready to share what Sam has to say. So here's the video with Sam. Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to have Sam Campbell here to share a little bit about her homeschooling journey and what she's learned. Sam, do you want to do your own introduction for folks who are listening?
Sure. My name's Sam Campbell. I spent the majority of my growing up years in Toronto, Ontario, and about 26 years ago, I moved to Hamilton with my partner, and we proceeded to crank out 5 kids who now range from the ages of 12 to 22. And we sort of eclectically homeschooled, unschooled all of them, with the exception of the 6 days that Soren spent in junior kindergarten. Which he loves to talk about. He's very seasoned with regards to school. And I guess, yeah, you were wanting to know sort of how we came to homeschool our kids. And we always laugh because my mom was the big proponent for homeschooling. When I had Soren, she's holding him. She's like, homeschooling's a thing. It's pretty great. I've been hanging out with a lot of homeschoolers down in the States. And I thought, isn't that just for really dedicated sheltering weirdos? Like, I don't think that's for me. I loved school. But as I started to kind of think, well, why did I love school? I thought, because I was sent to a really incredible alternative school that was publicly funded in Toronto in the early 70s that was started by parents. And that's why I loved school. So I thought, I'm going to find something and I'm going to send my kids to this kind of school. But dun, 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 there was nothing that was comparable. And the closest we could find, I thought, all right, well, let's give it a shot. And so we signed Soren up. And after about 6 days, I came into the classroom to kind of just be there and observe. And I thought, that's not my kid. I don't know that person. I don't know that shy, retiring, quiet guy. There's something off here. And I went home and I talked to my partner and he said, well, stop it. But wait, we can stop this train?
It's so nice to have a partner who's supportive, and also sounds like he had that kind of unschooler, practic schooler mentality. Like, if it's not working,
yes,
else.
Just shut it down. And the joke is, I always say, Tyler unschooled himself. I mean, he went to high school for a couple years and quit because he was severely dyslexic in an era where that wasn't a thing. You were just an idiot. So he left and became the kind of person that if he wanted to do something, he just learned it and became awesome at it and is now extraordinarily successful. So yeah, he had the sort of the DNA of homeschooling and understood, right? So he said, just stop it because I don't want to have inauthentic kids. And I thought, yeah, that's a good point. I want my kids to be authentically and wholeheartedly themselves. And I think I didn't really have a game plan. I just thought, I like this person. I like this baby that I have too. And we seem to be vibing. So let's just keep going and see what happens. And I often think too, when I look back and kind of analyze where my head was at, I think, okay, well, as a result of the way I was parented and my upbringing, I have a tremendous amount of confidence in my gut and my abilities. And if I don't know something, I can learn it, which is sort of part and part, like that's all of unschooling. If I don't know it, I can learn it. Someone will help me, or I can find a book, or I can just figure it out. And I think that that was really helpful. Those are sort of the roots. Yeah, just Tyler and I both believing in ourselves as people and as parents and as people that loved these other people. And I thought too, okay, well, if I'm a person of faith and I believe that I'm a temple for my creator, I have a vertical relationship that then becomes a horizontal relationship. And I can extend the peace that I feel and the wholeness that I feel, and just create an environment of peace and an environment of wholeheartedness and beauty and joy in sort of a second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour life. Because the future is not the point, like right now is the point, right? And I always wish that I had, so because we have 5 kids, our top 3 are basically off in the world doing their thing. And I think, wow, that was a risky little experiment, but it worked. And so the blessing there is that for the 2 younger kids that I have that are both sort of on the cusp of high school, there is so much more peace and tranquility that I can extend to them as a result of seeing the fruit of what we did and that it actually works. And my kids are just inhabiting their lives so beautifully. And I want to sort of talk about where the 3 eldest ones are a little later on. But I can see the progression of the childhood play and the open-ended long stretches of time and the conversation and the teaching, you know, deciding that, I mean, I always laugh when young homeschool parents come to me and they're like, what curriculum should we be using? What should we teach? And I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, you have little tiny people. You know what you should be teaching them is how to extend mercy to you and you extend mercy to them. There's no shame in honestly saying, I am running on fumes today.
Yeah.
I really need some stillness and quiet, and I'm going to give you the same gift, right?
Yeah.
And I see just being able to see the fruit. And I always wish that I'd had older parents around me who could say, look, it works. Everything's
Yeah.
going to be cool.
And
And
that was kind of my hope in this exchange and this conversation. A lot of the families that I'm working with right now are transitioning into unschooling, or so it's new for them, or their kids are quite young. And there is something so reassuring about feeling like there's this community of people who've come before you, who've gone through the same steps. And, there might be some differences along the way, but overall, just like leaning into, we're all in this together. And so
yes.
I'm really appreciative of you sharing today,
Oh my
Sam.
gosh. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And just it's comfort and trust, just take comfort. We're all just people and we're all here to do different things at different times. And we have to trust the process. And I was reading something today and I think I posted it on social, but it's like, I'm not a helicopter parent. I'm a submarine parent.
You go deep.
I go deep and I go low, and I put my little periscope up from time to time to make sure everybody's cool. Then I go back down. And it's not that I don't understand the freak out. I mean, every time a kid goes downtown with their friend for the first time, I mean, we live, about a 15-minute walk from downtown, but we live in a very different neighborhood. It's quite safe. Everybody knows my kids, but that, okay, bye, see ya. That's quite frightening. But I have to trust that I've taught them compassion and wisdom and discernment and smarts and to respect themselves and to respect other, I have to trust that everything that we poured into them is going to flourish and be real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, when you were saying, what's your homeschool style? It's like, it's basically just chill out and there's no rush. There is no rush. And I used to say that with a great deal of hope, but now I say it with a great deal of confidence that there is no rush. And those beautiful childhood days of just time, my Soren and Rosie and Edie, we go through HAAA Park and they say, man, remember the day we spent 9 hours here? Yes,
Aw,
yes.
beautiful childhood moments, right? Where time was not an issue. It was
Mhm.
really just following what interested you and your passion. And
Yeah,
yeah, maybe the sun had something to do with it. When the sun was going down, that changed things. But
so nice. Yes, and so the time and stillness and action, and just sort of following and facilitating, but also giving the offerings, right? Offerings without expectation. So things like, I always want to make sure all my kids know how to ride a horse, right? You want to learn how to ride a horse? Okay. So horseback riding, sports, music, dance. Soren took ballet for a long time when he was small. Um, but without any sort of, I always get annoyed when I hear parents go like, oh, you want to take ballet? You're going to be a ballerina. I think, well, what if they just want to pump gas?
these huge expectations attached to an interest really dampen that interest, don't they?
They really do, and you don't know. You could never. I always use my middle child as an example. She's she is a professional circus contortionist, but the midwife didn't hand her to me, and I didn't look at her and go, one day you'll be a circus performer. I don't know. And the funny thing about Edie is Tyler and I used to worry about her because she was so sort of 9 steps ahead physically in her brain. She would do something crazy and fall down and injure herself, and she was always hurting herself. And we think like, what is wrong with this kid? Like, is she capable of walking a block without falling down? Now we see that she was sort of think makes no sense, or does it? Thinking physically in her mind, like, I've already done 6 cartwheels. Oh wait, I haven't. Oh no, I've fallen again. So just you just have to wait it out and watch. And so, I mean, it's cool because she has so many tools in her tool belt. She's able to do all kinds of cool things because she took this class or that class, and she tried this and she tried that. Check things off her list. Those weren't working, but at a certain age, she said, "This is what I want to do," and she stayed with it, and is on her way to Cirque du Soleil a year from this month.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I like about giving kids that opportunity to pursue the things they're interested in for as long as they're interested in it is that, like, hopefully they take that into their careers. Their careers don't have to be static too. Like, I'm thinking about my grandfather right now. You get a job, you stick with the job.
Yeah.
We're opening everything up. Like, what else is possible?
Yes.
And
Yes.
what happens when you pursue, that combination of talents and curiosities and skills?
And the whole sort of see a need, fill a need, right? You can manufacture a job for yourself now. It's very different, particularly now. It's very different. Yeah, I mean, I might as well reference Soren, who we're being in the hospital with one of my kids, and my mom was watching him, and she called and she said, "So Soren's been in the backyard hitting a tree with a stick for about 40 minutes. That's fine, right?" And I said, "Yes, that's a morning in Soren's life." And it was all about tools and weaponry and wilderness and survival. And he was always very fixated on all the details about those things. He had to make the object really well, and then it had to work properly. And then he had to do the thing. He had to go into the bush at the age of 10 for a weekend with, a chicken and, all the tools, and do the pioneer thing. And interestingly, that parlayed itself into, thanks to you and to Tanya, that parlayed itself into the beginning of his sort of learning in the woods career, where he became a beloved facilitator. And now I see the journey of costuming and accessorizing and nature. He's become this person that creates garments using the environment and is incredibly successful. So yeah, like you were saying, you never know what they are taking in and putting together in this sort of giant puzzle that is them and is their life. And who knows where it's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why this is like the ideal, and a little judgmental of me right now, but I think that's why this is the ideal 21st century learning, because, oh, my youngest is playing with a balloon, it might pop. um, I think that's why this is 21st century learning to me, because it really is so dynamic and responsive to the environment that's around you, but also sort of, I don't know, it's leaning into what the future could hold too. Like it, because it's learning how to learn and just self-discovery and leaning into yourself. It's such a great preparation for an unknown future. So, and just as a side note, I love thinking about all of the kids that Soren likely inspired just by him going out and being himself in the world and interacting with all those kids. Like that just fills me up.
Yeah, he just, my heart is full when I think about him. I mean, when I think about all my kids, obviously, but Soren is the oldest, and as the trailblazer, I just am like, go Soren, you keep going, you're so awesome. I would not have been able to write that story, you know? And the gift I think that he was given was, we never said, what? Why are you only wearing a pirate hat and listening to Pirates of Penzance for like 5 hours? Get it together, kid. Come and do this worksheet. And that made me think too, because you were like, well, what about, teaching math and reading and stuff? And I think math is always the final frontier, right? Everyone's cool with like letting go of everything except for math. And my dad is a pretty renowned mathematician and economist, and he would always the main blessing in my life is that my parents are extraordinarily supportive of unschooling. And so my father would have just sort of quiet conversations with them where he'd say, just try not to shut that door. Because he would say, for me, math is my art. And if you're that kind of person for whom math becomes art and it's how you're creative, you want to sequentially build your abilities in that realm. Like if you're really feeling drawn to it, then that's what you should hit hard. If not, you want to be able to pay taxes and pay a bill and buy groceries and just do puzzles or things like that. And in that sphere, because I think I have maybe one kid for whom math is a pleasure. So I have one kid for whom math is pleasurable. I have another kid who finds it easy. And the other 3 could take it or leave it. So my advice to people when they say, oh, my kids aren't really all that into science or math. I remember my friend Alicia saying to me once, and she was going to some high school math instructor to talk to him about how her kid was not doing well in math. And she said, why can't there just be math appreciation? I thought, I
love that.
Genius. Because why can't we appreciate the people that came up with different theorems and different ways of doing things and the innovators? And I think that's a fantastic way to see whether your kid is programmed that way or not, is to say, with Andre, let's read about the Manhattan Project and let's read about Einstein and so they love biographies, So I think that's a great place to gauge, because one of my big pieces of advice for parents is just observe, right? There's no rush, just watch, pay attention, and then you come in sideways, right?
Yeah.
And you really feed that fire, and who knows where that fire is going to go. So I always thought that was really cool. And I always kind of make sure that they get a handle on operations, you put those things together. And what if, when Andre's like, how many days old am I? You can go, well, let me show you how to figure it out. And then I'm like, wait, how many days old am I? Oh, I'm not that old. That's not that many days.
Yeah, my youngest lately, she keeps asking, how many days will I live? And like my response is, how many days do you think you're going to live? And the other day she said, will I live 1,000,000 days? And although she's quite young, like just showing how we use these math concepts to make sense of the world around us was really meaningful for her. And we discovered, yes, there's a great possibility that she will live to be 1,000,000 days, which is like the biggest number she can think of, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how empowering is that?
It's great. And even just keep saying that, keep saying, I'm going to live 1,000,000 days, right? Build that infrastructure. And yeah, that made me think too. My father gave the kids a great book. It's called Go Figure. And it's about, first of all, it starts off and it's about what the world would be like without numbers, without a numeric system in any culture. And it talks about all of the ways different cultures count, right? Because we have the base 10, but not everybody does that. And the history of numbers and the history of math. And I think, well, that's great, because if your kid is more wired to really feed off of history or geography, that's a way friendlier way of opening up that box, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And reading. Oh my gosh. I think that's what sort of led to this conversation, right? Literacy.
It was.
Literacy. Everybody freak out. Because your original question, right, was like, were your kids sort of late readers or early readers?
Yeah, because I think what I see is a lot of people feeling worried by a certain age, and the age is matching up with a school version of learning how to read. And in my observation, the unschooling or, eclectic way of learning how to read looks so different from school. And so it's really unfair to compare your kids on that timeline. Like they're on their own journey.
Yeah. And I think at school, everyone has to learn at the same time because you have a specific schedule. Obviously, it just makes sense, I guess. So for example, I was a really early reader. Although we went to an alternative school, we did all the okay, we do this at this age and this at that age. So I was an early reader because that was the expectation, and you just learned it, and I learned it because I was there and was a smart kid. So I thought, well, that's, I guess, what happens. You just kind of learn to read. And I only have one kid who was a quote unquote early reader, and for whom it was sort of innate almost. I thought, when did you not know how to read? This is weird, because everybody else in my family really came to the, reading the printed page fairly late in the game. However, they were extraordinarily literate. Their vocabularies were off the charts, and they were listening to audiobooks that were on university reading lists. And I would always laugh. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to teach Soren the long A sound, but he's fighting with Emma about which Shakespeare play they like better and which one is more awesome. And I thought, okay, well, how did this come about? And I thought, everyone was reading to them all the time. And it was different people with different choices and different styles. So for example, my dad was always reading to them, and he has a very calming, cozy voice. And he would choose things like P.G. Wodehouse, which you wouldn't normally think would be appropriate for children, but he's really funny, and Grandpa's reading it, and Grandpa's really laughing. So I'm going to enter into this culture, and I'm going to kind of learn it. And they're like lifelong P.G. Wodehouse fans as a result. And my dad would read James Herriot, and I remember him reading some Agatha Christie to me. And my father will still read to our family. My mom was more sort of the cozy classics lady, and she would always be telling stories. She would make up characters, and the story would go on and on and on and on and on. I would read anything. I don't love actively playing, but I'd say to the kids, I will read anything you bring to me, and I will read it until my throat is bleeding. And when I say anything, I mean anything, because Edie for a long time had this American Girl doll catalog, and she would need me to read it from the front to the back, and not just like, this is Rebecca blah blah blah, she comes with this dress. It would be like, Coco the dog, C0R4769, comes with 18-inch leash and dog bowl, number 4768. Yeah, I have to read everything on the page, the price, the shipping, everything, for a really long time. And I was like, well, I told her I'd read anything, so I guess this is anything. And then Tyler, my long-suffering partner, was the comic book guy. So he would read comics, and that means like from SpongeBob to the entire comic book Bible. But he would have to do all the voices, and he would, and he was so funny. And then they had their Aunt Dana, Tyler's sister, who was just she is still this incredible adult that just enjoys imaginary play and intense make-believe. So they would make, oh, Jeff, let's talk about Jeffrey and Annabelle. And she would always say to me, before she had her own kids, she'd be playing, talking, making things up all the time. And she'd go, Sam, can't I just help you? Like, do you need help? And I was like, you are out of your mind. Like, do you even understand how helpful you're being right now? Then she had kids and she came to me and she said, oh, now I understand what you were saying. But the late reading is funny because they just sort of fall into it, right? I don't really know when they started to read. I do know, however, that we were at church one Sunday when Soren was around 11, and the pastor loved him and said, oh, Soren, it's Remembrance Day. Would you read this beautiful poem for everyone? And I heard Soren go, I can't read.
And there's so many parents who would cringe. Did you cringe?
Oh, I kind of was like, I get it that this is a safe place, but oh, Soren. And I didn't want to say to him, don't tell people you can't read.
Because to him, it was not a big deal, right?
He thought it was hilarious.
Silly. Yeah. I can't read.
And then when Rosie was 6, I heard her listening to the unabridged Pride and Prejudice audiobook. And I said, do you understand the language? And she goes, no, but it's kind of like listening to music. And I thought, yeah, you're exactly right. And she's a big fan of that genre of literature now as a 20-year-old woman.
Oh, wow.
So, right? So
she's listening to music.
She's listening to music. So who cares about the bar? It can be real high or real low. Who cares? But just strewing and creating an environment and just making things available and having them fall in love with storytelling, and that becomes their favorite thing, is to just sort of be doing but also be listening, and then they understand a good story, and they understand that that's true entertainment, because we're not real hardcore about, oh, well, this is worthwhile and this is terrible. It's been the pandemic. Andre plays an obscene amount of video games. Yep. But he also likes to cuddle up and listen to Redwall. So whatever. He's just living his life,
Well, yeah, I think what I like in what you're sharing is that each person in the kids' lives is showing up with what they feel passionate about, and inviting the kids in, and in being invited into their passion, they get to discover their own passions. Yeah. And even if they don't feel connected necessarily to what this person is sharing with them, they still have that role modeling of, this is what I find beautiful, and this is where I come alive. And so it's sort of role modeling, to go find your own path to for what you like.
Yeah, and it teaches them to appreciate other people's passions, right? Which I think that's what you just said. And it teaches, I think they learn how to understand people, and to not be afraid of their own likes and proclivities. For example, Rosie as a little kid, there was this one book in, my parents lived in Williamsburg, Virginia, and there was one book in the Williamsburg Library called Torture Devices Through History. Loved it. And I was like, I can't even look at the cover of that book, okay? And stop tormenting your sister with it. She loved it. And she loved true crime. Anything about Jack the Ripper or Elizabeth Bathory, she was all over it. And and instead of us kind of going, no, that is so inappropriate, we're able to kind of draw back and think, okay, so Rosie clearly isn't exhibiting the, characteristics of a serial killer. She seems fine. She's like a lovely person. She also was really intensely into Victorian costuming and all kinds of stuff. And now is going into second year university, the double major of anthropology and art history. And what she wants to do is curatorial studies at a museum. She wants to work in a museum.
Wow.
And so I'm like, again, I'm sort of beating this dead horse, but you do never know. And you have to try to understand and just be okay.
Yeah, and it leans into that theme that you shared right at the very beginning of this deep sense of trust. And it can feel so scary to trust when we're surrounded by a culture that's saying, don't trust anything.
Yep.
That's why we're having this conversation.
Constant guidance. It's really odd. And that's not to say that there weren't scary times or worries, because I had to end some relationships as a result of adults sort of what they would say testing, what I would call bullying my kids.
Wow.
Right? And a family member that I had to be like, never talk to my kids again, because that's so inappropriate. So you have to advocate for them, right? And just sort of be the moat, Another hilarious hang up that I had, because we were pretty consistently like confident in what we were doing. But then when my eldest daughter said, I think I want to go to high school in grade 12. And I went, ugh.
Yeah.
And then
And that happens, right?
have I blown it? This is it. This is where the rubber hits the road, and I find out whether I've completely destroyed your life or not. And it was a real journey to get her into high school, first of all, because her transcript, or what I crafted and called the transcript, was so unorthodox and rich and quite frankly fascinating. The public high schools didn't know how to translate that language into sort of a box checking thing. So we had to go private. And I remember calling the private school and saying, I'm freaking out. This is who my daughter is. She's a scholar. And she has done incredible things. And they're all from her. I never assigned her anything. She decided to study first and second wave feminism and go and talk to the head of the Sexual Assault Center of Hamilton. And she decided to interview men and women. Like she set these projects for herself because she was interested, and nobody wants to hear about it. So they called me back and said, I'm so sorry that you're feeling like that. We understand. Here, just pay us this stupid amount of money and we'll take it. But I do remember watching her walk into school. So the big joke is our family's very first day of school, grade 12. See you later, Rosie. And I watched her walk in and my heart just sank and I thought, I don't know, like, does she have what it takes? And she absolutely did. She graduated with double honors, as did my second daughter, who went to high school for grade 12 as well. They knocked it out of the park because they had that innate confidence and ability, and they were so interested in what was going on. They really wanted to engage and be there and do the work. And my daughters always say, thank God for The Story of the World, volumes 1 through 4. That sort of non-linear, non-Eurocentric history, geography, economics, all bundled up and read to you by Jim Weiss. It is gold, and it is fascinating. And my father used it in lectures for a long time, and my kids are constantly referencing it, and it helped them to see history really well and to see what history really was and what it really is, and that it's not just a bunch of white people in England calling shots. It's everybody all over the world, and always has been. And that was invaluable to them. But I'm just here to say, yeah, I was so scared, but I didn't have any reason to be scared. They did a beautiful job, and it was their choice to go and do a beautiful job.
I almost see an expression, like, especially when it's a teenager, I almost see that wish to go to high school as like kind of something to be celebrated, because you've done such a great job unschooling them that they now see this school option as a resource, and they see it as serving them. And so they're going in a direction that to them makes a lot of sense for whatever they want to do next. And so scary as it might sound to parents, I don't know. It looks like a real celebration from my point of view, but my kids aren't old enough. I haven't experienced that myself. So who knows, maybe I'll say something different when my turn comes.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't a bummer for them, right? It was an exciting adventure. And they liked the idea of having like a locker and a binder, and that was, or I guess not a binder, a laptop.
We have binders.
It was almost like this sort of, it was dramatic, right? It was something new that they'd seen their whole lives, and they got to sort of choose to participate in it. And that was really exciting for them. And it was a terrific experience for them. They had a blast. Maybe not so much my middle daughter's grade 12 year, because it was COVID, but she had sort of half a year of grade 11. And yeah, just, I'm impressed with them every day. Like, they're incredible people. And I am really honored to have had the chance to become friends with them, which I don't know if that would have transpired had they just gone off and been sequestered for 6 hours a day with some other lady or man. I really, we have a very genuine, honest, open relationship. They tell me things sometimes and I'm like, I can't be, okay, great. And how did that feel? And then I come away going, wow, I can't believe that they trusted me enough to share that with me.
Yeah. It's all those years of coming in sideways, like you said, when you're coming in top down, you always feel safe to share the things that you're vulnerable about. But coming in sideways, that power with that, feel your safe space to explore things and be curious with.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt that Tyler and I both did just tremendously insane and rebellious activities as teenagers, like from start to finish. So they couldn't possibly help but sort of become these angels in our eyes, right? They're incredible. And as much sort of envelope, they do a lot of envelope pushing and experimenting and trying and adventuring. But because I know them really well, it's not frightening at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just know them. And I know that they know themselves. And I always tell them, I say, I remember being a teenager and everyone thought I was being such a moron. But I remember thinking, I know what I'm doing is stupid, but I'm not stupid. I'm just trying something. Everybody calm down. That was very helpful for me to remember.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea where we are on our questions, Sam. So were there other points that you wanted to share? Because I'm looking at the questions that I had, and it seems like you've hit all of them.
Yeah, I think we covered them. I mean, I think I would want to hit, don't neglect yourself.
Oh, big one. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. Let's save that for last. Really be intentional about valuing yourself and taking time. I mean, I started September 7th of last year, daily, taking time every day to say, I'm so thankful for my body. I am deciding to be friends with my body. I'm deciding to be friends with my brain and my face. I'm just appreciating my life and my abilities. And that's going to make me a better parent and a better partner. And I just have so much grace for myself today. And I'm just completely open to peace and hope and joy and purpose and ability. And for me, it's very prayerful. It doesn't have to be for everybody, but I've tracked every single day. I've written it down and I've tracked with it. And I mentioned this on one of my podcasts that as a result of doing this every day, one of two things has happened. Either I've started making better choices for myself and I've seen a difference, or I'm seeing what was there all along and it doesn't matter which one is true, you know? It's just that I have such value and I'm experiencing like having a love affair with myself all of a sudden as a result of being intentional about it. And I think a lot of the time, particularly when you have little people, it's very simple to just sweep yourself under the rug. And as somebody who did that, it sucks. And it's never fun, and it doesn't inform your energy or your zeal for your job. So I think if you want to sort of up your game, it would behoove you to just start to cultivate just self-love and value and worth, and even just saying it out loud is huge. Like it's just atmosphere and environment changing. Like your interior ecosystem changes and your exterior ecosystem changes as a result of articulating it.
Well, just listening to you say it, I felt my heart expand, and I thought, am I going to tear up here? I hope not. It's one of the rare days I put on mascara. But and you're right. It doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. It's that like every day is a gift, and feeling appreciative of what may show up in your day and your body as a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also the joy, I think, of a homeschooling journey, is that you've given yourself time and space to have more of those appreciative moments instead of being in the go, go, go. Yeah. Someone else has set the pace. Someone else has set, the parameters of what's going to be achievable or good or whatever.
Yeah. Just to appreciate the privilege of reflection, and then to use your privilege, right? Is really helpful, and it's helpful for yourself, it's helpful for your family, it's helpful for your neighborhood, and ultimately the world, right? I mean, if you can sort of see yourself as a pivotal and crucial component of the age that you're in and the world that you're on, you can't help but feel energy and zeal and passion for your own life, go like, I'm needed here. And I need myself, to be healthy and strong and able. And it's completely achievable. It's all about just the way you talk to yourself, about yourself, and choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, Sam.
Thank you.
Are there any projects that you wish to share about with us?
Yes.
With us? That's a question we haven't covered yet.
Oh man. So last October, I started a podcast with my dear friend Miranda Riley, who lives in Huntsville. She has 6 kids. The first 5 all kind of line up with mine. And our eldest have been friends since they were around 2. And so we started a podcast because I used to say, I was like, it's so weird. I mean, why do people of faith tend to be the most fearful parents? I mean, the trope of like Christian homeschooler, like we're going to sequester away from the world. When I think, well, that's me. I guess I qualify as like a Christian homeschooler, but I want to be just part of the narrative. And I'm not scared of anybody. And I want my kids to see humanity. And I want them to embody the compassion and empathy of Jesus. And I want them to be the hands and feet. And I want them to be helpful. And I want their incentive to always be like to extend instead of to draw away. So I said that to Miranda. She goes, let's just share that. How do you go from being fearful to faithful? And you can be completely free range and totally wide open and like full of curiosity, because the opposite of fearful is curious. So we started a podcast and I started a blog. So our website is faithfulfearless.com. And I have a project in the works that I haven't unleashed yet, but it will be just daily declarations, prayers, anything that you would need, just like I was saying to you, right? Just to sort of lift you and give you that sort of updraft for your day. So just declarations, prayers for energy, joy, wholeness, satisfaction, self-love and value, and just appreciation for your process and your family and just the life that you're living, and just confidence for next steps. So that will be unleashed very soon. And another buddy of mine and I have started a new Hamilton Homeschool Co-op, which I'm hoping will morph into the alternative school of my dreams. Currently, we've got sort of this is our soft opening. We've got I guess, grades 7 to 12 we're focusing on right now. And that will start mid-September. So that's all I'm doing, really. And then hanging out with Maggie and Andre.
Well, there are a lot of exciting projects, and I did have my eye on the school that you've started in Hamilton.
Great.
Yep, that's
Yes.
watching that one.
I'll
My
save
kids
some
aren't
spots.
old enough yet, but
I'll save some spots for you.
okay.
Yeah, it's going to be phenomenal. I'm really excited. And I've got a terrific partner who is a good buddy of mine, and we vibe really well, and we are on the same track. Yeah, I'm really proud of her, and we're gonna do great things, Erin.
Yes, you are, Sam. Well, thank you so much for sharing your family's journey and your own learning experiences. When I put out the request in our local Unschooler Facebook group, looking for somebody who would be willing to share their experiences of their grown unschoolers, as soon as you responded, I was like, of course. Why didn't I think of Sam?
Yes,
So
mother
I'm
of the
so
iconic
thankful.
Soren.
I know. So I'm really thankful that you were willing to share with the folks who have found me, and I look forward to sharing your information so that they can check you out too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my pleasure, Erin. And again, I am happy to talk to anybody at any time. Yeah, it's an honor.
Sounds good. Okay, Sam.